Governor Gavin Newsom, after 20 years of ineptitude and really poor results in our state of California, you're fired. It was only that easy. Hey, welcome to Real Estate Ripoffs. I'm Bill Gross. This is my podcast on those major forces that are making our real estate industry worse here, particularly in my market, Los Angeles and California. Governor Newsom has been in charge of our state in one capacity, starting really, if you look at his history, he was the mayor of the formerly most beautiful city in America, San Francisco, in 2004. And after doing that for 8 years, went on to be the lieutenant governor of California from 2011 until 2019, when he became the governor over the last 5 years. So he has literally run the largest individual city and state of California for 20 years. Now, in any other business, if he was the coach of a basketball team or a football team, he would have been fired long ago. If he was the president of a company that was a for-profit company, he would have been fired long ago. Only in politics do we promote people who are incompetent as they get worse and worse and give them more power to destroy things. You know, when I was young, when I started my career in 1986, California was the envy of the world. We had the highest priced houses, but because we had the highest income in the country consistently, as a result, people flocked to California. And now it's the opposite. More people, particularly middle-class people, are moving out of California than moving in. And one of the interesting factoids now is not only are the middle class moving out, but so are the wealthiest people. It was interesting that recently when Governor Newsom was interviewed, kind of interesting, is he running for president? Is he not running for president? He was quoted as saying a couple things. One is, we create more companies every day, more millionaires, and over half of America's billion-dollar valued companies are in the state of California, which tells you where his focus is. And it's not surprising that California has billionaires and millionaires, meanwhile, the largest poverty, the largest welfare in the United States as well. And they're not unrelated because the policies have been to give power to large companies as they crush smaller companies. Now, I do want to say that Governor Newsom hasn't been inactive. He's a very active destroyer of our real estate industry. In fact, last year alone, this is a statistic, I had to check this a number of times. There's no number, the exact amount, because if a bill is related to housing or not, between 50 and 63 new housing bills were signed last year alone. Now, each bill is probably a couple hundred pages. There's no way he read every page of these laws that he's signing into practice. 56 laws designed to improve affordability and help tenants. You notice the headline in the NBC Bay Area says to help tenants. So of course, that's destroying the value of our real estate, because I don't see any cry for tenants' rights other than politically, but overall in our economy, it's just a destructive factor that's going on. 56 laws, like what did he do? Did anything get better as a result? I'm not aware, and I'm a full-time real estate broker. So let's take a look at some of the things that he did do and see if they've helped anybody here. One is, here's a picture of, this is just the classic, Governor Newsom, good-looking guy, good shape. He's, cool, hip, dressed normally. And he's helping move a family into some low-income housing because he signed this bill. And if you look at the photo opportunity, he visits Oakland to announce a $14 million homeless housing grant. This is part of the $3.75 billion home key program. Now, what this means is Governor Newsom signed a bill to take $3.75 billion from taxpayers and give it to people, give it to his political donors, give it to his political constituents. Truth is, in this picture, it's actually, if you read the detail, this picture is on Pico Boulevard in West Los Angeles, because I don't believe Governor Newsom will be moving people into property in Oakland. So that just shows you how the news is so one-sided in his favor. But here's the program, $3.75 billion of taxpayer money thrown at homeless. And how did that work out? Well, here's an example. The developer bungles this program. This particular company, Shangri-La Industries, got $12.2 million. And they were building a 45-unit hotel into low-income housing. And they've disappeared. The founder was found to have taken money and spent it on his girlfriend. And they have a total, as their company, over $114 million of funds are now at risk. And we have people living in these projects all being foreclosed on. So a complete disaster. And I think the question I always would ask anybody in real estate, is there anywhere in the world where the state or the federal government built housing that was desirable that improved the community? I mean, everywhere you look, the projects are always the worst housing. They were so bad in LA, they were torn down the Watts area. New York are famous for those projects. When people say they grew up in the projects, they're not saying that to brag in terms of the quality of their life. They're saying to brag in terms of they got the hell out of the projects. But somehow, Governor Newsom and his ilk think that by taking taxpayer money and building more projects, somehow that's going to improve things. Obviously, that's a waste. Another area where he's destroyed our economy is making it harder for people to get into the economy by eliminating minimum wage jobs. Originally, when I was in high school, the minimum wage was designed for like a teenager working through high school or college to get their foot in the door into business, to learn some basics of business. It was a great experience. Now you have politicians who are arguing that the minimum wage should be a living wage. People should live on it. And the result is, since most jobs at that aren't worthwhile, they're being downsized and eliminated. You go to restaurants now, more and more automation, less and less employees. So Governor Newsom passed this new bill that would increase the minimum wage to $20 per hour. And lo and behold, his large donor, Panera Bread. I've never eaten there. I eat kosher, so it's not an option for me. I know friends who love it. Panera Bread is exempt only because they bake bread on the premises. So because they bake bread, somehow the workers who serve food and make food and clean food and all that, they're exempt from the minimum wage law. They get $16 an hour because Panera makes the bread, meaning now this is the interesting thing. They get a lower wage at the higher activity rather than you think the other way around. You might say, well, if you bake bread, you have a higher minimum wage. But no, we don't want to do that because that's a donor to the governor. And the last thing we do is upset the apple cart. Now, famously, that got changed as soon as it came out. The Panera Bread owner said, whoa, we're going to charge $20 or pay $20 an hour anyhow. So they got caught. This is the classic case of Governor Newsom. Happens all the time. So he has a law, doesn't apply to him, gets caught, they change the law. So to their credit, I guess, maybe Panera Bread has turned around and decided to pay the employees $20 an hour, even though they're baking bread. And instead of just 16. But who's not paying $20 an hour? Well, Governor Newsom. Famously, if you know anything about his very, very high-end restaurant in Napa Valley, where they have fancy wines and fancy seating, and this is the place where it's called Plum Jack Cafe in Olympic Valley, and this is where famously he has meetings with people, and they sip fancy wines and all that, and they are listing their jobs for $16 an hour. So the governor has his fancy restaurants, and they're paying employees $16 an hour, but somehow Wendy's and McDonald's and Pizza Hut have to pay $20 an hour. So again, you're forcing a higher wage rate to the lower level jobs than the governor and his donors. I just think it's hysterical. And how is this overall happening? Well, the sad part is, and this is USA Today, which is hardly a critic of the governor or Democrats in general, say liberals and La La Land, high wages sound great, but there's a steep price. And what they do is they document that there are thousands of jobs being closed as of April 1st as this law went into play. So we now have more people who are going out of, instead of working at businesses, are being laid off or getting unemployment or whatever on welfare. And then we have owners who are having a tough time making business. So that's kind of how things work here in California overall. Now, specifically, we get to real estate. Several laws by the governor. This is the LA Times, and this is a direct quote. The Governor Newsom signed several new laws to protect tenants against eviction and high rental costs, including a bill that caps how much people pay upfront in security deposit. He didn't just sign one law; he signed several laws. And I think, has anybody in California, other than politicians, thought that tenants need more protection? I don't think so. I think we swing way too far in the pendulum in that direction. Again, absent politicians who use this as a way to make it look like they're helping the little people. But he just signed one law. He signed several laws. One of them, if you read a little detail here, it used to be that if you own a property, you could decide who you rented it to. Well, that day is gone. And we have laws. Of course, we can't discriminate in race, creed, color, so on. But it used to be we're called at fault reasons for eviction, i.e. they don't pay the rent or they do something wrong in the property, or no fault. You own a property, you buy it, you want to live in it. So you tell a tenant, hey, here's 30 days notice, 6 days notice, time to move on, and I'd like to live on my property. You can't do that anymore. That's called no fault. And unless the tenant does something wrong, the state basically has taken your property rights and given them to the tenant. Even additional is making repairs or taking the units off the market. Meaning if you want to upgrade your property, you have to pay the person. You can't wait to the end of the lease term or rental term. You have to pay the person to get out. And if you decide you don't want to rent anymore in San Francisco, they're actually going to charge you to keep an unoccupied property for rent. So basically, a state's taking your property and telling you what you can or can't do with it. Another recent law signed by the governor was he eliminated crime-free housing policies. So this law now will prevent governments from imposing penalties or requiring landlords to evict tenants based on calls to law enforcement, right? You have a tenant who's forced, police calls regularly, you can't kick him out for that anymore. Suspected criminal activity, can't have them leave for that. Other nuisances, you can't even do criminal background checks anymore. And also if you have, let's say, one member of the family who's committing crimes, maybe arrested in the premises, running drugs or something, you can't throw out the other members of the family, which obviously means that criminal has a chance to come back to the property. So it just creates a real mess for the state now telling you what you can do to protect not just your property, but protect the neighbors in your property, other tenants. You can't evict people because of numerous police calls. So how's he doing overall? Well, the budget deficit, part of the problem here is we spend money we don't have. And most recently, our budget deficit, when he was being recalled, magically money appeared and the budget deficit was wiped out, and he distributed famously $1,000 checks right before the election to buy his way back into staying in office. But here we are now a year later, and it turns out that the budget deficit isn't even the $38 billion that he said it was. It's $73 billion when you add everything up he's proposing and planning to do. So all we're doing is getting further and further in debt, moving further and further in insolvency, raising our interest rates further and further. And I think one of the real lies of real estate is the term affordability. They want to talk about how housing isn't affordable, housing is so expensive. It's not that, it's that the incomes have not kept up with everything else. And so let me show you what I mean by that. Here's a great chart. This is from the state of California, actually. This is from the governor's office, legislative analysis. And you can see that when 2009, when Governor Newsom became mayor in San Francisco, median income was $53,000, and to buy a low-income home, a starter home, was about $37,000. And then 2019, when Governor Newsom became governor, the median income was at that time about $78,000. Let me see here, where are we at? 78, yeah, something like that. $78,000, yeah. And the price for a minimum starter home was a little below that, $73,000. So again, in his tenure before Governor Newsom, the average income could at least buy a starter home. Now, the average income in California is about $85,000, but the average starter home is $137,000. Just like Big Macs and everything else in life, everything's gone up in price but incomes. That's why politicians love deficit spending, because they can lie and say, well, we don't know why housing's gone up. It's an affordability problem. No, it's an inflation problem that the government has created on purpose so they can avoid accountability for their actions. And here's a case where you have our governor who for 20 years has been responsible for trying to even pay good money to improve the life of those of us in California, and has failed miserably. And so I want to end on a positive note. I don't want to just complain about it. I want to offer you something that you can do. Governor Newsom is facing a second recall. And I'm supporting this. I've come out publicly. Go to rescuecalifornia.org, and let's get this new petition, which was just certified at the state, eligible to collect signatures. Let's get the signatures again on the ballot. Last time he lied about the deficit and sent money out and bought his way in to the rest of his term. And it's time for us in real estate to tell people of California, hey, the reason why housing isn't affordable is your money is being spent without your approval. And let's stop that. So what do you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Put your comments below. Like if you like it. Don't like it if you don't like it. Subscribe. I'm at Bill Gross Probate, and I'm committed to helping all of us increase our income and wealth through real estate. Have a great day.